Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to Moksha Media. By the way, I am Moksha Hiremat. In one way or another way, we use language every day. Without language, our life becomes incomplete. So, in one way or another way, the language is important to lead the life of happiness, calm and quietness, peace, and a style of life. It is an essential one. Nowadays, you cannot dream the world without the language. Language is the part and parcel of a life. Then what does language mean? This is the question which puzzles the brains of the most of the people, particularly linguists in the world. Modern grammarians, that is linguists, try to understand language in a different way. They try to interpret language in so many ways, but all those definitions, all those understandings are not complete. They become part and parcel of a language, but not the whole. That is, it is just like four blind persons trying to understand an elephant by touching the different parts, different organs of an elephant. Even with all those things, they cannot form the appearance of elephant as a whole. But their efforts should be appreciated. They have not kept quiet. They tried their best to understand the appearance of the elephant in their own way, with all those distractions, with all those limitations, and etc. etc. And we can say same thing to these linguists. Linguistic is the study of language. It is a science. And linguist is a one who studies the language very scientifically. That is why you cannot deviate the study of language from science. Because nowadays it is a passion to talk of science and going away from the science. It is just like a person who talks of a culture, in fact, who has spoiled the culture. So, here, the same thing can be said of science. Science is inevitable. It is part and parcel of the life. It is a way of understanding the things in the world, but at the same time, it should not become a fashion. If it is a passion, it is all right. When science becomes a fashion, it deviates from the other things. So, we try to understand the language scientifically by applying the linguistics. Here, language is a medium of communication. It is generally said. And in that medium of communication, we express our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our concerns, and etc. to the person who is before you or who is away from you. Of course, in one way or another way, one person tries to communicate something to another person. That means, in order to communicate something, there must be two persons or two things. Language is a kind of media which appears between two persons, which transacts between two persons or two groups or a group of people in a society. So, language is inevitable. The word language is derived from Latin language. Latin language is belonged to Indo-European family of languages. In Latin, it means lingua. Lingua means a tongue, a speech, and that becomes a language in English. Most of the words in English are derived from Latin and Greek. It is common in all other languages. In one way or another way, the languages bring words from other languages. And by bringing and giving the words from languages and to the languages, they develop, they evolve their own system of communication. So, here many linguists try to understand language in many ways. Of course, here I would like to quote some definitions of linguists who try to understand and define language in the way the people can understand, the people can think of it. According to Mary A. Fay and Frank Gare, language is a system of communication by sound, that is through the organs of speech and hearing among human beings of a certain group or community using vocal symbols possessing arbitrary conventional meanings. And according to Stuart Want, language is a symbol of arbitrary vocal symbols by which members of a society act and react. And Block and Trager, who extends the meaning of Stuart Want, says language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbols by means of which a social group cooperates. Of course, here I have to quote Noam Chomsky, the American linguist, who tries to define language in a different way. And Chomsky says, language is the construction of sentences that can be generated using transformational grammar. And in this context, I would like to quote the Kannada linguist J.S. Kulli, who opines that language is a system of sound symbols produced by a group of people in a particular area or environment. And those symbols are understood and accepted by the social groups. And when they are accepted and practiced continuously, automatically those system of sound symbols would form a language. So like this, in one way or another way, that language is associated with the sounds. Without sounds, you cannot produce a language. Without sounds, you cannot use a language. In producing the sounds, the organs, the sound organs are very important. Usually, we have these organs which play a prominent role in producing a sound. When the air is pushed through the throat, It passes through the throat, it goes to tongue, palates, teeth, lips, nose, chin, etc., etc., where the tongue controls the movement of the sound, that is the air, and by that it produces a different kinds of sounds. When these sounds are accepted and understood properly, then they will become the part and parcel of language. For example, we say Neeru for water in Kannada. If I use the same word Neeru in England or America, they cannot understand it because their environment, their area is completely different. But when I use water for Neeru in America and England, they will understand it because the water is understood and accepted by those group of people living in a particular area and a particular environment. That Neeru is understood by a group of people living in a particular area and in an environment. And not only that, that word, that sound is accepted. And it is not only accepted, it is practiced. It is practiced in a properly, in an orderly way. And it gives a particular meaning. Then only we come to know this is a thing and that is another thing by using different kinds of sounds. So this system of sound leads to language. So without language, without sound, language cannot be operated. Language cannot be used. Of course, you cannot call every sound as a language. A sound should be in an order, it should be meaningful, it should be understood, it should be properly pointed out to a particular thing which could be understood properly, and then only we can say it is a kind of sound. Of course, in modern linguistics, we say that sound is a phoneme. That is, it refers to sound symbols, and those sound symbols forms a phonemes, and totality of phonemes would become a morpheme. Of course, morpheme is the primary unit of a language. By arranging words, sounds and words in a particular way, we express our feelings and thoughts, we convey our emotions to others. Then only a man from other side can understand what we say or what we express. So in order to become a language, all this process is very important. So then you can question me, when the language is originated? So it is very difficult to say the origination of language because it is wide. We can jokingly say when God and man are born on this earth, at that time the language is originated. Of course, it is an answer trying to answer the question, but it will not satisfy our human curiosity. So, on and on, we try to understand that language in a different way. So, in traditional grammar, language is understood in a structural way, and in linguistics, that is in modern grammar, we say in linguistics that language is understood in the form of sounds. For example, different languages have different sounds. I have already given you the example of Neeru. in Kannada and water in English. And the difference can be given in other ways also. In some languages, there are three tenses, but in Kannada or in according to linguists, there are only two tenses. It is only past and the present. By using the present, we can convey the meaning of the future. But there is no future tense. Kannada is the best example regarding this. But of course, nowadays some people use that future tense, but that is the influence of other languages. But it is not the originally belong to Kannada language. So like this, the language has its own importance in the given context. Without that context, you cannot understand a word properly. So, in order to understand the culture of a particular people and a particular area, the language is very important. It says to us something about the culture, something about the civilization of that area and of those people, and the development and evolvement of that generation, and to what extent that generation has donated to the next generation also makes an important thing. So in this context, the language should be seen and it should be understood. Then only we can study, we can understand the language of a particular area or the literature of that particular area. You cannot study literature apart from language. That is why, in order to study literature properly, in order to appreciate the literature properly, the understanding of the language is very important. In that context, I try to analyze, I try to understand the language in its way. That is what we have to keep in our mind while studying language and literature of any culture and civilization. And dear viewers, I hope I have brought home the truth. And subscribe to our channel, and we again meet in the next episode. So thank you all.